relationship to something in tribal times with organizational development. Today, I'm going to introduce to our group archetypes, and I'm going to let me put up my sample here. Let's see. Now, tell me if you can see this. Can you see that?
Make it bigger?
Ken?
Got it. We have it.
I cannot make it bigger than that. That's as big as I can make it. Is it coming across okay? Okay, so
Yeah.
when in ancient Greece was the last time the gods and goddesses were actively in the world. And then over time, with modernity and post-modernity, the gods and goddesses went underground. And in our time and our lexicon of words and vocabulary, that would be the unconscious mind. The gods and goddesses are still here, but they are in our unconscious world. Did you know that the biggest block to self-leadership is your own shadow? The shadow represents everything that is disowned or unrecognized in your and my personality. Now, shadow integration is arguably the most critical process to authentic psychological growth. You rarely hear it discussed in personal development literature. Now, why is that? Well, simply because we don't like to have to talk about the shadow because it doesn't make us feel good. In general, that would be an overall statement for most people. So most self-development efforts are an attempt to elevate us. We're always saying how great you are, how great that person is. You know, we're always in the light trying to elevate. Now, that doesn't necessarily get the job done. In contrast, shadow integration seeks to ground us. If we learn how to integrate our shadow and be in touch with the unconscious of our own makeup. The strange thing is that our attempts to feel better about ourselves are what drives a host of neurotic behaviors, like procrastination, overworking, overthinking, overconsuming, whether it be media, the social media overconsumption, that our particular culture here in the United States is epidemic for doing. Ultimately, the result is that we don't feel okay within ourselves, or we continue to run on autopilot, comparing ourselves to others, judging others, and so on and so on. Shadow integration is perhaps the most important thing you can do for yourself because it helps to put an end to games we play that don't serve us. By the way, not only that, but as consultants and coaches and data scientists, it is shadow integration that gives us a better ability to have a perception, a legitimate perception of what's going on in the organization that we're working with. That gives us the tools and our ability to be in touch with our own unconscious to see what's really going on in the people that we're there to serve, to increase their performance and to make their organization adapt to a higher level of effectiveness. Now, Jung, I'm going to bring in Carl Jung here because he's my guy all the way. And the inner life that Carl Jung described is the secret life that we all lead day and night in constant companionship with our unseen, unconscious inner selves. When human life is in balance, the conscious mind and the unconscious mind live in relationship with each other. There is a constant flow of energy and information between the two levels as they meet in the dimension of might be dreams, vision, imagination, it could be ritual. Now, the disaster that has overtaken the modern world today, ladies and gentlemen, is the complete splitting off of the conscious mind from the roots in the unconscious. So as we look at the chaos and the tyranny in our world, in our environment, whether it be in our schoolyard, our playground, or our village, our city, or our nation, or whatever, it's the split off from the conscious mind to the unconscious mind that is at the root of this dilemma. Now, archetypes, let me talk a little bit about archetypes. Now, Plato was probably the first philosopher, first person who really referred to archetypes, and he referred to archetypes as forms, primal forms at that time, back in whatever that was, about 450 BC, when he was around. For Plato, there were two realities, the world we live in and the non-physical realm of form. Now, when Carl Jung came along in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Carl Jung referred to these forms as primordial images that are in the collective unconscious. I want to get into that in a minute, what the collective unconscious is about. Later, Jung referred to them as archetypes from the Greek, meaning prime imprinter. Arch, prime, and type being the imprint. So archetype comes from the Greek etymology. So Jung saw archetypes as fundamental units of the human mind. Archetypes, Jung wrote, are the living system of reactions and aptitudes that determine an individual's life in invisible ways. 99% of us go through life without ever really being in touch with the unconscious because we haven't really had the tools, or we haven't lived in an environment where those tools were made available to us. Now, one quick little anecdote here in history, and that is Freud. Jung was a student of Freud. Now, Freud, his patients were mentally ill to him. While he was the analyst, he was mentally sound. Now, Jung took a different approach. And I think when we look at Jung's approach, I think we can see ourselves in this approach. With greater humility and direct experience, Jung realized that he had a similar mental condition to many of his patients. Jung saw that all of us are fragmented, divided, and ruled by unconscious forces. Today, hearing voices in one's head is often associated with being considered crazy. The stigma hinders our ability to understand the archetypal forces that are coming up within us to talk to us. Being in touch with the unconscious is a skill and art that those of us that are doing it can do it better over time. The question isn't whether we have voices in our head. The real issue is whether we're receptive enough to hear them and grounded enough to work with them. Archetypes play three vital roles. Now, think of this in your work with organizations as I spout out these roles. Influencing our behavior. Archetypes do that. They trigger emotions. They provide us with a sense of meaning in life. Now, we can utilize archetypes to elevate our consciousness, to support psychological development, and to enhance our mental well-being. And two psychologists, Hal and Ira Stone, wrote a book called Embracing Ourselves. And in that book, and this is one of my favorite quotes in here, and that is, in ancient Greece, there was an understanding that one was required to worship all the gods and goddesses. Now, you might have your favorites, but none of the remaining deities could be ignored. The god or goddess, when you ignored them, became the one who turned against you and destroyed you. So it was with the Trojan War. If you think about the story of the Trojan War, that's what happened there. So it is with consciousness work. The energy pattern that we disown turns against us. And there's a psychological principle. The feelings we don't have us. Same thing. The way they worked with the gods back there is the same as the psychological work that we do today. It's the feelings I don't have me. The feelings that you don't have you, and they will turn against you. So the story of the gods and goddesses is just as prevalent today in the underground of the psyche of our organism that we live in. So I'm just connecting the dots to bring history. The content of people's consciousness is the same as it was during the days of Alexander the Great. The feelings, feeling hurt, resentment, anger. None of that in society has changed over humankind in history. So that is a constant. The constant in the collective unconscious, now we're going to talk about the collective unconscious, serves as a repository for memories, images, and symbols representing humanity's past. It is ubiquitous and universal, and on a psychic level, accessible to all. So the collective unconscious is not where you go to your therapist to bang away at your past, to heal all your woundedness from your past. That's the personal unconscious in Jung's world. The collective unconscious is a deeper it's a depth psychology where you're hardwired with everybody else in the universe. You're equal and the same as everybody in the collective unconscious, and every single feeling, impulse, thought, perception, behavior, action is all in the collective unconscious throughout all of history. It's all there. So the universal images or patterns called archetypes exist in an unseen repository or field that connects each of us to each other. The contents of the collective unconscious are archetypes, primordial images that reflect basic patterns that are common to us all. Okay. Okay. So why the psychology of archetypes? Archetypes are the underlying forces that shape our human behavior. Because these primordial images reside in the unconscious, the part of our psyche we aren't aware of, they influence us without our knowledge. Think about that. Have you ever missed an appointment and said, now, why did I miss that appointment? What's going on with me that I missed that? Or you did something, or you said something to somebody, or you lost your time, and you say to yourself, why did I do that? So what we're doing here is we want to get behind the controls of part of the level of our unconscious mind so that way we can serve our organizations with a greater level of accuracy. Now, Marie-Louise von Franz, that was Archetypes protege. I think that it was also his mistress. She said, the archetypes are inherited dispositions which cause us to react in a typical way to basic human problems, inner and outer. Now, I'm looking at my time. I want to be, what I want to do right now, everybody, I'm going to move over to the actual presentation, and the presentation today about where is Dionysus is also about the king, warrior, magician, lover, and we're going to go there right now to this place. The king, warrior, magician, lover. Okay, here we go. All right, the king, warrior, magician, lover. Now, Robert Moore, by the way, Robert Moore, I did a 5-day workshop with him on this whole area. And Robert Moore is a Jack Daniels man, I'll tell you that much. In his personal life, he's Jack Daniels, but he's a professor at the seminary, Chicago Theological Seminary in Chicago, a professor. And he wrote this book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Now, today, that book is really King, Queen, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Is really what that book is today. Now, I'm going to move this over so I can get to my cursor. I'm going to get up here to the top. Okay, here we go. King, warrior, magician, lover, the 4 foundational archetypes. Now, these 4 archetypes are going to cover every behavior, every thought, perception, action, impulse, anything that could ever be within your consciousness is encompassed in all 4 of these archetypes in king, queen, warrior, magician, lover. These are the basic images or patterns within our psyche. They are the templates or blueprints for our behavior. Jung originally called these basic forms primordial images, as I mentioned before, but now, of course, he uses the term archetypes. Now, today we're going to explore these 4. And by the way, everybody, we're going to have 2 breakouts. And in these 2 breakouts, we're going to go over these 4 archetypes. And I want you, as you listen to this presentation, see where you are within this presentation. See if you can find yourself in each one of these archetypes, because in our breakout, that's what we're going to cover. Now, but before I go into the actual archetypes, I want to give you the model for Carl Jung in his work with psychology. Now, Jung's map of the psyche, okay? Now, the ego in Jung is not the Freudian ego from ego, superego. Now, that's Freud. See, that's different. This is also not the spiritual ego that a lot of us know from things like A Course in Miracles. And, that ego is almost like the bad guy. That ego is something you have to really wrestle with. And this is not the ego from behavioral psychology or other gestalts. This is Freud's, this is Jung's ego. Now, the ego, by definition, is your and my persona. It's how we come across in the world with our personality, how we behave, how we are seen by others. So the ego here is totally just our persona, and that's another Jung term, persona, in the outer world. And by the way, that probably represents 5% of your total organism, your total being. That ego represents about 5%. It's like the tip of the iceberg. If you go out on the Titanic and see that iceberg, it's the tip of the iceberg is that ego, okay? Now, the real powerful force in your world with Jung is self. Self is the total decision-making mechanism for you in self. Now, the personal unconscious, and then we have the collective unconscious. Now, the personal unconscious is when you go to your mentor, Or you go to your coach or your therapist and you bang away at your woundedness from your past. And so the personal unconscious is the real life you come from, whether it's your childhood, your teenage years, your marriage, your children. And that's the personal unconscious. That's real. And that's something that you work with, if you're in touch with that, on a regular basis to be the best person you can be. And that's why I've used the word therapist, because a lot of us are very familiar with therapy. And these are complexes in here, like, the Oedipal complex for a guy with his father, right? The mama's boy, the weakling, the unindividuated, passive aggressive, all the complexes that come into human psyche throughout time is the personal unconscious. Now, the collective unconscious, this is what we're really about today, everyone. And this is the inner world on a deep level that is ubiquitous and universal. It covers everything that ever was and is in consciousness, is the collective unconscious. It's a deeper level below the personal unconscious. It's a deeper part of and this is also where every one of us are, you could say, equal. We all have this in common. Now, before we dive into Moore's King, Queen, Warrior, Magician, Lover, it's worth a little bit of a review on Jung's roadmap of the psyche. So there I am going over the same thing I just went over. The shadow, now we're going to be talking about the shadow today. And although I enjoy talking about this, if this is something that's difficult for you, try to be present for it as much as you can. The shadow is the area, as I said before, where most of present day psychology and media coverage doesn't go into much, because it's not something people gravitate to. People want to be elevated. That's why everybody has a trophy. Ken Long knows all about the trophies on the soccer field. Too many kids are getting a trophy just for being on the team today. Everybody gets elevated today, right? Trophies everywhere. Okay. And I think you understand what I'm saying. So at the center, once again, is the self. Now, the self is where you and I have the ability to make decisions about where we're going to go on this map. The choice. Are you going to work on your personal unconscious? Are you going to go into the collective unconscious? Or are you just going to let that ego mind rule and create suffering and pain in your life? Okay. So we went over this. Okay, now here is a model. Now I might want to give you a bigger picture of this one here. Let's see. Okay, can you see that one? This one's a little bit bigger. The Robert Moore model for King, Queen, Warrior, Magician, Lover is right here. Now, what I want you to be able to, and you might take notes on this too, because see, the King, Queen is the line of nurturance. Now, what is nurturance? Nurturance is order. Like, what are you going to do tonight at 10:05 p.m.? What are you doing tomorrow morning when you wake up? It's also about order. If you have a clean, orderly home, that's a sign of your King, Queen energy. That's working for you. It's also about fertility and blessing. A blessing is in the hands of King energy. And also fertility. Now, that's literal fertility and metaphoric fertility. So it is about procreation, but it's also about metaphorical fertility, to fertilize all the people around you in your kingdom, whatever. Now that's the nurture, that's called nurturance, and that's the King energy. By the way, all these archetypes want to possess you. Your job, as when you own the self, is to access them, but not let them possess you. So an archetype wants you to just be so involved in their archetype that you're addicted to it. But your job is to access it and move in and out of it as you see fit. So we also see the warrior archetype is the energy of aggression. Now, in that energy, you have everything from boundaries, from taking a stand. If you're a protester in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you're a warrior. That's warrior energy. When you go out there and you fight for what you believe in, whatever it might be, that is warrior energy. I think everybody here understands what warrior energy. That's also about boundaries in relationship, taking a stand for yourself. You understand that. Now, magician, this is the line of cognition. So this is all about knowledge. Like, for instance, in our group, I think of Ken Long as being very much involved in the magician archetype because of all the work he does. He to me is a magician. Now, I also happen to be a magician as my dominant archetype, but that just happens to be where I like to hang out more. Now that's all about. By the way, the prophets are all in here, like Merlin, alchemists. The prophets that guide a king or a queen in their work. All the Merlins of the world and all the alchemists are in the magician archetype. The therapists, psychotherapists, anybody that represents wisdom is in the magician archetype. Now, the last one is the lover archetype. Now, that's the embodiment. That's like Eros. If you love your work and you are great at your work, that's lover archetype. If you're passionate about something in your life, that's lover archetype. See, I think you understand what all of these stand for. And by the way, each one of them has a division that is very clear and separate from each other, yet they all encompass everything that we are about in our lives, in our behavior, our thoughts, our perceptions, everything. And Jung uses the term individuation process, okay? So individuation is the same as what many people would call self-actualization, maturity, becoming a mature male or mature woman. To go up the maturity archetype would be to thread the needle. Like here's the ego right here going up. Now you want to ultimately the ego and the self is directing the individuation process. Now, the key to this work today, and this is a lot to take in for the short time we have, so I apologize if I'm giving you too much content, but what we're going to do today, we're going to go into the shadow, the bipolar shadow area of each archetype. Each archetype has a passive and an active shadow. Now, what's that mean? Well, for one thing, the active pole is the inflation. If you're inflated in something that you do, like a coach would say, "Oh, you're too far over your skis." In the coaching world, we use that term. "Oh, you're too far over your skis. You need to back up." And then if you're in the passive role, the deflated role, that means you're not coming up to bat. You've got more to offer. Yo, Joe. Come out, and the world needs to hear you, man. You're holding back too much. You've got more going on than you're giving yourself credit for. Come on out and talk to us. In other words, that's the person who lacks confidence. Maybe somebody who is, it's funny, the addiction model of life came out after Jung's work, but you could literally take the addiction model today and overlay it over Jung's model, and it would be like a match. It's almost like Jung understood addiction before the addiction model ever came to be in the 30s and 40s and 50s, when it became an important psychological model in the world. And the reason I say that is even in the step book for AA, there's a line in there that says you're either climbing on the top of the heap or you're trying to bury yourself underneath it. In other words, you either think you're less than everybody else or you think you're better than everybody else. And that is the source of addictive behavior. And that also for Jung and Robert Moore is the source of the bipolar shadow in the active pole of shadow behavior, and the passive pole is climbing on top of the heap is the active pole of being inflated, and burying yourself underneath the heap, as it says in the big book of AA, is the deflation of the passive pole. So let's see if we can get. I'm watching my clock to manage my time. I think we're doing okay. Okay, so in Jung's work, we have this passive pole. Let's go ahead and go right into there you go. There's originally this book was the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Now there's really nothing different from women, and from the female archetype is pretty much parallel to the male archetype, so that it's really King, Queen, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and everything that they've applied here for men also applies for women. Okay. By the way, Doug Gillette is the co-author, and Doug was a mythologist, so you can imagine what he brought to the content through that. So this book was published, Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine and Feminine, and here they are. So let's go. Ken would probably like this. The authors likened the four archetypes of mythology to the four winds of the Navajo people, right, Ken? The four faces of Hindu gods and the four gospels of early Christianity. So if you're a Christian, you may be able to see the metaphor or the analogy with your Christian faith in these archetypes. Okay, we're going to get right into them now. I'm going to skip this little part here because it's way, way too much to cover right now. Now, there we go with the line of aggression. There we go with the breakout of the embodiment. Now, let's go right into the actual archetypes themselves. We're going to start out here with the king. And by the way, we're going to do two archetypes, and then we're going to go into a breakout. And I'm going to ask you to try to see where you found yourself in those two archetypes. The first one we're going to work on is the king archetype. And the king, the active pole of the king in the bipolar shadow is the tyrant. Now, you and I know many, many tyrants, whether it was Adolf Hitler in the 30s and 40s, or whether it was Napoleon, or who it might have been throughout time. And in organizations and even nonprofits, there are tyrants. Tyrants are everywhere. And tyrants don't necessarily have to be in a leadership role to be a tyrant. You know, King Herod was a tyrant when he found out there was going to be a baby born called Jesus, and he got all his military guys to go out and slay all the babies that were born that year so that this Jesus guy wouldn't be able to come about. See, now the tyrant is afraid of someone coming in and unmasking his falsity, seeing through him and taking him down. See, and that's what King Herod did. Saul did that too, and Caligula. We could look at Caligula, Saul. Many people back in Roman times fit that tyrant role. Now, the weakling, that's the other side. Let's do these one at a time. And these are the bipolar shadows. As you're working your way up to mature masculinity or femininity, that's your ability to thread the needle between the active and the passive role, realizing that you are equal to all of other humans. You're not better than, you're not less than, and you're trying to learn how to grow up and be an adult at the top of that archetype, okay? So in many dysfunctional families, here you go, the father is immature, weak, or absent. Under these conditions, there isn't sufficient king energy, which leaves the family in chaos and disarray. So the shadow of the tyrant, this is the active shadow. The tyrant is the inflated pole, right? This is the inflation. The tyrant hates or fears or envies new life. That's like King Herod with Jesus. He's threatened by new life. My dad was threatened when I was the first boy in our family, and I suffered from the Oedipal complex big time because I took away his attention from his lover, my mother, who had to give me a bottle once in a while. We all understand the Oedipal complex, right? So here we have never residing in the center. The tyrant lacks calmness, lacks generativeness, and creativity. As such, he tends to leave a wake of destruction in his path, okay? Let's see. Okay, as a purely self-interested narcissist, the tyrant exploits and abuses others. The true tyrant is ruthless, merciless, and without feeling. This tyrant knows nothing about empathy, okay? This tyrant does not understand compassion for his brother. These are areas of development that never got into the purview of this tyrant, okay? The tyrant is terrified of his hidden weaknesses and lack of potency. Consequently, he projects that weakness onto others. Now, this is a basic psychological principle. That which we disown within ourselves, we project onto others. And the tyrant is a good example of that. It's a compensatory behavior to not owning that within yourself. We understand that, right? That is compensatory to not having that consolated within your psyche and in your development as a human. With his grandiosity, this ego inflation, he cannot receive criticism. He often feels weak and deflated. By the way, in modern day today, he probably won't get along with the press. He's not somebody who can handle media with much effectiveness because he can't stand criticism. The tyrannical father will go out of his way to undermine the joy, strength, energy, and abilities of his son or daughter. I know a lot of you are familiar with that one because I know I am. My father made it very clear to me that I would never amount to anything and that I was a loser. On the world stage, the tyrant is everywhere. It runs governments, world organizations, and so forth. Okay, now let's go to the passive shadow real quick. We're going to try to break out by 11:50. I'm watching my time. Now, the weakling, okay, this guy here, we all know this person too. Behind the protected facade of the tyrant is the weakling, the passive side, the deflated bipolar shadow of the king archetype. Now, also lacking centeredness, the weakling is anxious, fearful, insecure. He's prone to paranoia, panic. We all know people where fear comes into them very early in a dilemma, a conflict. And that's the weakling archetype of the king, where fear dominates. The weakling exhibits oppressive behavior and constantly represses his grandiosity. When he hits his limits, the repressed grandiosity bubbles to the surface and explodes into hostility. Okay, so he may appear nice. And by the way, a lot of people who are real nice are in this deflated bipolar weakling archetype of the king-queen energy. There's a lot of niceness out there running around that has a mask of, oh, they're so nice. That's the epidemic in our culture. But later becomes a different person when the repression gives way, that nice person, okay? So we have some, by the way, you guys who are artists, these images are right out of archetypal psychology. There's the warrior right there. Now we're going to go into the warrior. We have a few minutes to do the warrior before we take a break. Now this represents the line of aggression and the energetic aspect of one's psyche, see? This is all about discipline. The warrior in his or her fullness is a samurai living by his code, a spiritual or psychological path through life, a total way of being. Now, the powerful masculine archetype pushes us to embrace life, challenges and harnesses us with life force energy. This is the mature warrior, masculine, feminine. In men and women, the warrior represents the capacity for aggression, but not in a destructive way, unless you're in the shadow. If you're in the shadow of the warrior, then there is destruction. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the function of the warrior archetype. Warrior energy empowers us to stay motivated, cultivate focused discipline, establish boundaries, follow through, and serve a cause or a mission. Potent warrior energy shifts us from defensiveness to holding back, to tackling life's problems, tasks, responsibilities with confidence. Now, we all know when we're in that energy, right? Now, we also know friends of ours that are real good at that energy. I have people I look up to that have that energy that I'm letting them mentor me to get more of that energy. This archetype is strategic and takes on what Buddhists call right action. So this person is responsible, that tackles conflict resolution, life problems, task, goes head first into it, and doesn't fool around and try to dodge that. Now, just for your notes, men tend to access this energy earlier in life, in their late teens and 20s, whereas women in general, these are just generalities, these aren't exclusive. Women overall, as a macro statement, women tend to access this line of aggression in midlife. And that's just a generic statement. Don't take me literally on that. But generally, women access their warrior more in midlife, whereas men get it more earlier. So key characteristics of the warrior archetype are energizing, motivated, and focused, okay? Taking an offensive attitude toward life instead of a defensive. Are you throwing that ball on your back foot, or are you stepping into it on your right foot and hitting your receiver, right? A football metaphor, right? So when you're active in the warrior archetype, you're stepping into that pass. If you're the quarterback, I think everybody understands that. If you're on your back foot, you're going to miss that ball. Responsible and disciplined, ready to leap into battle if they have to. The warrior archetype moves us forward, takes right action, alert and awake, does not sleepwalk through life, knows what he wants and how to get it, possesses clarity of mind and razor-sharp evaluation, the ability to discern, to scrutinize, to differentiate. That's in the warrior archetype. Strategic and tactical. If you're an overthinker, you're in the passive role, which we'll get into in a minute. If you overthink things and overanalyze things, you're in one of the passive bipolar roles of the warrior archetype. Adapts to difficult situations, knows its limitations and capabilities. By the way, part of self-confidence is knowing your limitations and knowing how to ask for help. engages in in-depth training to develop skills, makes every action count, has an inconquerable spirit, and is loyal to something bigger than him or herself, devoted to a cause, his God, his civilization, his GrowthOD. Let's say, okay. Like the samurai, the warrior has a sense of imminent death that propels him through life, leading to full engagement with an unconquerable spirit. Now, briefly, before we're almost okay. I think we're on time, Ken. We're doing okay. Now, the archetype. Here we go. The archetype. Jung and Robert Moore used the triangle to show that most people are somewhere in the shadow. But if you can thread the needle up your individuation process to maturity, you can be the head of, like the general of the army, General Eisenhower, or whoever. You might say General Eisenhower probably navigated right through here. He was the commander in chief during World War II. For whatever that's worth, right? Okay, the active pole, the sadist is the active pole. That's the inflated warrior is the sadist, and the deflated warrior is the masochist. I think you can probably appreciate the difference in those two. The masochist is somewhat self-abusive, maybe, right? The warrior archetype's active shadow, the sadist, okay? Now, this is all of us at some point in time have probably been in here. The sadist is the demon of cruelty, which may manifest as cruelty with others without passion. Darth Vader would be an archetypal symbol through our movie world as an iconic sadist, expressing the passionless killing machine. If you know a passionless killing machine, that's a sadist in the warrior archetype. Behind his mind and feelings are not under control. Because his mind and feelings are not under control, the sadist is prone to taking emotional swings at everyone. Violent emotionalism is the trademark of this warrior's shadow. This destructive masculine archetype can enter us when we experience times of extreme fear or rage. In other words, remember, our job is to access these archetypes in our psyche every day of our lives. Now, if you access the bipolar sadist shadow of the warrior, that could be based on you being in fear or panic. That causes you to go there. So ritual humiliation is commonly found in cults around the world, expressing the trademark process for the sadist. The sadist loathes the weak, preying on the helpless and vulnerable. And once again, we have the projection, that part of your own warrior archetype where you are weak, you don't own it, so you project it on to others. And there we go with the what we don't own owns us, and therefore it's projected onto other people. Ritual humiliation, commonly found in cults. Okay. The sadist develops from adolescent insecurity, sometimes from the hero archetype, and often carries this into adulthood. I myself was a victim of the sadist archetype in my early and late 20s. All through my 20s, I had some of that going on. Okay, this sadist lacks legitimate phallic power because he is still battling powerful feminine archetypes from childhood. Oftentimes a mama's boy or somebody who was overly coddled by his mother might compensate from a compensatory standpoint, could develop the sadist archetype of the warrior as a compensation for the way he was brought up. This archetype constantly harasses, belittles, and attacks everyone and everything, leading to burnout for some people. In everyday life, the sadist exhibits a compulsive personality, often prone to workaholism. Workaholism can be in there, but please don't take that too literally. Many of us are workaholics without being in the shadow of the inflated warrior. So that it doesn't mean that they match across the board, okay? Now let's go into the passive, the masochist. Now this person here, you can't have a sadist without a masochist, right? In warrior energy. So this person is willing to take abuse, He's a cowardly pushover, like a whipped puppy. Sometimes in marriage, is somebody who is not treated well, is projected onto with guilt or whatever, could be into the masochist archetype in a way that they're not conscious of at all. And that's very sad, but it's out there. So projecting the warrior energy onto others, the masochist feels powerless within himself. He's unable to defend himself physically or psychologically. As a consequence, he is easily taken advantage of. If you were bullied in school and didn't transcend that in your adulthood, you still could be being bullied as a masochist in the warrior archetype, okay? The bully coward, from boy psychology, that's the bully coward dynamic right there. Okay, now here for you artists out there, there you go. There's an image for you for the warrior archetype. Okay, we're going to stop here, and Ken, I'm going to come back. Let me do this. Let me come back to planet Earth here. And what I'd like to do is, and Ken's going to administer this. How many people do we have, Ken? 12, 15?
We have 12.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do 6.
Olivia is not able to be in the room, and you were going to float, so I would say.
Oh, let's go with 10.
Five groups of 2.
Yeah. Now, here's what I want you to do in the breakout, everyone. I want you to go over what you've learned and taken notes on in those 2 major archetypes, the king-queen archetype and the warrior archetype, whether it's masochist, sadist, tyrant, or weakling. See where you are and what you're working on within that. Now, as we go into this breakout, I also want to say that if you decide to constellate these archetypes into your beingness on a regular level within your organism, you can get behind the controls of your operating system as a human being on a higher level with much more power. So I throw that in as a way to introduce the breakout. 3 minutes with one person, 3 minutes with the other, and then we'll come back. And if we have a little bit of time, we might have a couple sharings. Okay, Ken, go ahead and initiate the breakout.
I'm going to launch them now. That leaves you and David to be free to float.
Okay, now let me ask you this: how do I float? Is everybody in the room?
You can just go to the rooms. And
so these are the rooms right here in front of me?
Yeah. People should see the rooms they've been invited to.
Okay, so I can join any one of these groups I want to for now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to, did you set the timer for the 6 minutes? I'm going to set the timer.
Oh, I did
I'll
not,
do it.
But
okay. I got it. I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for the 6 minutes just so we have. Okay, I'm going to go into a room right now, if that's okay, with Monty and Tom.
Sure.
So, everyone, how was that experience? How was that experience for you?
It was great. It was great.
Are you finding ways to be able to label and or identify certain characteristics within yourself that previously you weren't aware of, or you didn't know where they came from, maybe?
Yeah, let me help here. Carol, from room 1, summarize in 10 seconds. Best thing. Unmute. Sorry.
The masculine, feminine, yin yang conversation that arose.
Awesome. Anastasia, 10 seconds. Best thing.
I love the concept of the shadow of the archetypes. It's very fascinating. I want your notes, Jack.
Elizabeth, 5 seconds.
I love the conversation about healthy king energy.
Monty, hot take. Unmute.
Personal reflections on some personal experiences.
Dr. David Boji, unmute and hot take.
I discovered I've gone from being a warrior to being a lover. And I appreciate that.
Jim Rogers, hot take.
Well, I read the book 30 years ago, and it's been a part of men's work, and I'm grateful for that.
Don White, hot take, then Joy, then Tom.
Talked about knowing who we are as warriors, but the growth. So I love the conversation about growing. And
Joy. Unmute.
To identify our king sides as well as our warrior sides. We got both of that discussed in that amount of time.
Tom.
A lot to digest. Thank you, Jack.
My hot take, I was in a river of joy with all Jack's energy and looking forward to the next step. Jack, back to you.
Thank you, everybody, for your contribution and your input. And Ken, thank you for leading the discussion. And that was great, the way that just unfolded just now. Now, in the time we have left, we're going to do the last two archetypes. We're going to do the magician archetype. That's the magus archetype, the alchemist, the prophet, the wisdom person. And then we're going to do the lover archetype. And then we're going to break out and go over those two. So you already know what the exercise looks like. So we should be really in the zone on this one, since we already had a practice round with the king, queen, and the warrior. Okay, let's go back to breakout. Ken, do you want to divide people up a little bit differently, once again, we're going to go about 6 or 7 minutes total, and then come back.
Let's see.
You want to mix it up a little bit?
Recreate.
Yeah, recreate the pairs. Give people a different pairing this time.
Well, then wait a minute.
I know David does that a lot. That's a tough job to repair everybody up.
Jack, we don't have access to that document. You didn't review the last two archetypes, the lover and the magician, according to your document. Did you want to put that document in the chat?
I don't think I have a document.
Oh, okay.
Now, I do have a presentation that I'm coming from. Is that what you mean?
Well, the Word document that you were referring to.
Okay, here we go. Okay, there's the rooms. We have 7 minutes total.
All right.
What are we doing?
I'm sorry. Why are we doing this? No. We're going back to the big room. I'm taking over the presentation.
You told me to set up the rooms.
We're back to the presentation. I'm sorry. We're back to the presentation.
You told me to set up the big room. Okay, they just went to the rooms.
Yeah,
we close the room. Sorry.
We need to go where I can share my screen again.
There we go. Okay, I got it now.
Can I share my screen?
Stand by. They are coming back from the rooms. You can share your screen.
Okay. According to my timer, we have about 24 minutes. And I'm going to go back to our here we go. I'm going to go back to our presentation, and I'm going to cover the lover and the magician archetype. Here we go. Okay, I got to make sure I got. Okay, here we go. Right now, we're going to do the lover and the magician archetype. Okay, let's get down here. That breakout, I think, was pretty good. It seems like everybody learned something on that breakout. Once we do these two final archetypes, we will have another breakout. And then we will come into the big room for a final closing. Okay, so here we go. The magician archetype. Now, I'm a little prejudiced here because this is my favorite. It could be your favorite, too. Okay, so the magician is all about knowledge. This is, we have the bipolar passive, which is the innocent one, the denying innocent one. People in denial often are people in the bipolar shadow, the deflated ego part of the magician archetype. Because remember, this archetype is all about what you know, whether it's about yourself or about the world, it's what you know. The magician archetype is the energy of cognition, awareness, insight, thoughtfulness, and reflection. With magician energy, we move from information and knowledge to deeper wisdom for healing ourselves and others. The magician is the builder of our world. The magician carries hidden knowledge that comes through special training. Its role is to contain and channel its power for the good of all. This means becoming generative as one matures in their development. This powerful archetype understands the hidden dynamics of the human psyche and can harness the power of introversion. As a consequence, this archetype can manipulate others for good or for evil. So the scammers of the world are in the bipolar shadow of the magician archetype. This archetype possesses a finely tuned bullshit detector and the ability to think through problems that are not obvious or perceptible to others. In other words, if you know somebody who can see right through you, I once had a brother who's passed now, but he could see right through me. He was constellating the magician archetype. This brother of mine could call me out on any of my BS I ever had, and he passed away last March, and I miss him, but he was my magician archetype from my BS. He kept me in line. Yeah, if you have people in your world that can keep you in line because they have the magician energy working, that's good. Keep them around. We all need people in our life that can see through us, okay? So the attributes of the magician archetype in its fullness, now these are the attributes in its fullness. If you are able to thread the needle up that individuation process for the magician, you are highly knowledgeable in your capacity for deep thinking. You are a knower and master of technology. Now there's Ken Long right there. It guides the process of transformation. Remember, the magician is the miracle worker, the prophet, the wisdom person. The magician initiates secret and hidden knowledge in various kinds, endures special training, spends a large amount of time, energy, and money to be initiated into realms of secret power, like the witch. If you think of a well-schooled person who can put a spell out there, the formula for alchemy is all within the magician. The magician is willing to undergo risky ordeals to acquire mastery, understands the links between the seen and the unseen, the world of humans and spirits. This energy, this magician energy for you will possess an enormous amount of power, a master of containing and channeling this power. This is the opposite of being in denial. This person hits the world direct and understands himself and others. The magician energy can cleverly deflate arrogance in others, has an excellent bullshit detector, as I said before, sees through denial and exercises discernment, can uncover unconscious motives and self-deception. So if you're able to see the scammers coming in on your email or your text, that's magician archetype. Regulates life functions of the psyche as a whole, helps insulate us from the overwhelming power of the other archetypes, harnesses the energy of introversion. Think about the energy of the introvert, and that's what the magician energy is doing. Emotionally detached and stable, not easily swayed, pushed, or pulled. In other words, the magician archetype does not have a hot temper, doesn't blow up, emotionally detached and stable. And when it says emotionally detached, it doesn't mean emotionally detached like I don't have empathy for your dilemma. It really means that in the energy of the archetype, it emotionally will not get so involved that it can't function as the magician. That's all it means. So I don't want you to misconstrue the words emotionally detached there. It's not emotionally detached from the world, but it's emotionally detached from whatever they're working on or studying. Like a good psychotherapist is not going to cry with you. The psychotherapist is going to try to access your warrior energy for you. Okay. The magician is the witness of the experiencer, helping us to govern the observing ego and enabling us to plumb the abyss of the psyche and the unseen worlds. Now, let's quickly go over the shadows before we go into our breakout. Well, we still have to do the lover. Okay, the bipolar shadow archetype. Now, let's go into the active shadow, the inflated magician, the detached manipulator. By the way, this is a big one. The detached manipulator is everywhere. Like if you think back to Hitler, Hitler had a propaganda department and he had a propagandist. Anybody pushing that false conspiracy theory is a detached manipulator, putting out what they want you to believe, not what's truth or real, but what they want you to think. That's the detached manipulator. This active pole, this is the active pole, detached from human values, making him cruel and cynical. He manipulates others by withholding vital information. This shadow archetype manipulates human perception and behavior for its own delusional agenda. The detached manipulator tends to overthink instead of fully engage in life. Okay? He is afraid to live, caught in the web of pros and cons about his decisions and lost in the labyrinth of reflective meanderings. The armchair adventurer cannot participate in life or the lived experiences of others, leading him to feel isolated and lonely. He cuts himself off from living relatedness with others and his soul. Detached manipulators abound in our modern society. As I said, we find them as professors in most graduate schools. David, watch out for that one. And those others of you who are professors. Advertisers on Madison Avenue are often detached manipulators, many therapists, and all propagandists working with NGOs and other special interest groups. Okay, now you got a pretty good feel for the detached manipulator. And by the way, they're everywhere. Now the passive role, the innocent one, the denial, this is the innocent one, wants the power and status of those utilizing their magician energy, but doesn't want the responsibilities that come with this archetypal energy. So this is the person that vicariously lives through, or this is the person that doesn't want to take on the role, but wants to have the title, but not the responsibility, the innocent one, right? He has no interest in sharing, teaching, or helping others. In fact, he's hostile toward questions. So that might be somebody in a leadership role that doesn't like the media or can't stand the media. The innocent one will learn just enough to derail those making a worthwhile effort. He's motivated by envy, resentment, and resents those who act and live and want to share. The innocent one fears others, will discover his lack of potency, life energy. Inwardly, he feels desolate and lifeless. Okay, now quickly, let's do the lover before we have to go into our breakout. Now, the lover is the embodiment of Eros energy. So this is you and your passion. If you're passionate about writing poetry, or you're passionate as a professor, a teacher, this is your lover. This is the embodiment of accomplishment and the embodiment of success, if that is your passion, in the individuated place. Now, the bipolar shadows include the addicted lover and the impotent lover. Now, the addicted lover could be anybody on addiction to their telephone, addiction to social media, addiction to drugs, cocaine, alcohol, gambling, you name it, any addiction, including social media, is within the inflated side of the lover archetype. This archetype, one dances with life, experiences vividness. Okay, that's the good side. Attributes of the lover archetype. Enables vividness, aliveness, passion, a sense of personal meaning in life. By the way, this lover archetype has an energy that is sensitive to the external world around them, too. These are the pluses of the lover. Deeply sensual and sensitive, provides a sense of connectedness through feelings, wants to touch and be touched, wants to touch everything, doesn't recognize boundaries. Well, okay, so if you get into the shadow side of the lover, you could get into not recognizing boundaries. See, can read people like a book, senses people shifting moods, deeply feels both joy and pain of others. Now, the shadow, the addicted lover, I mentioned a little bit about that. Let me just say, the addicted lover cannot ground his or herself, okay? A lack of ability to be grounded. Remember, this is an inflated lover, not deflated. Inflated is the addiction. He lacks self-regulation, becomes eternally restless, perpetually searching for something he doesn't know what he's looking for. Like chasing the high. Well, the first high you get, the addict often will chase that high forever and ever. This addicted lover has an insatiable hunger for experience, some vague something that is just over the next hill. addiction is by the way, it's a very sad dilemma to be in that inflated side of the lover archetype. Lacking the ego structure of the mature masculine, he still under the spell of the feminine unconscious from childhood. That, by the way, that often is the addicted lover, still under the spell of the feminine unconscious from childhood, where he's not differentiated from his mother, possibly, or feminine energy. Often synonymous with the Don Juan syndrome, where the man seeks an endless stream of women. The Don Juan syndrome is carryover from the mama's boy archetype. The shadow archetype seeks the ultimate continuous orgasm, the endless high, for drug or porn. Porn addiction is in there big time, and so forth. Okay, so you got that. Now let's quickly go into the passive role, the impotent lover. This is almost like somebody who's depressed or represses their feelings and is not available to be fully present for their life, right? Passive pole of the lover archetype experience an unfeeling way. He feels sterile, flat, and listless. Under the impotent lover, a man lacks enthusiasm, aliveness, and vividness. He is perpetually bored, lacks an appetite for life, and speaks in a monotone manner. Now, we all know this archetype, and some of us have been in this archetype, this bipolar deflated shadow of the lover, become chronically depressed and disassociated in this archetype. While the addicted lover is constantly seeking the next orgasm, the impotent leads a man's sex life to become stale and inactive. Okay, we're going to stop there and go into our breakouts. And I want you to take these two final archetypes. Remember, all four of these archetypes cover every single area of consciousness that you and I ever experience. So you can find everything in your magician and in your lover. These are two wonderful archetypes. So let's go into our breakout, Ken, and let's go for 7 minutes, and we'll be back at
Yeah. Hi, David. Yay,
David.
I don't know how I wound up here, but I'm
I
back.
don't know.
You're here. You're here.
Yep, and we got Ken too.
Hi, Ken. Ken, should I move to another room or?
Your
Stay here.
Yeah, stay with us.
Okay.
Just the room to be in.
I like going back to the same room. I don't like going to different rooms.
Me too.
Well, it's all mixed up now because I don't think I met with except for Ken. But all right. Wow, the magician is amazing archetyped. So many things going on there. I really unfortunately when he pulled up the passive side of the shadow of the architect, I was like, oh goodness, you're calling me out there. Just so many thoughts were going through my head there. And then with the lover, I think I'm struggling with my passions right now. Anyway, I feel like they have just been so incorporated into my daily life that it's like they don't set themselves apart anymore. I don't know, but I'm going to stop talking there and let someone else go. We have 7 minutes.
When do you guys want to go?
Sure, I'll go. Yeah, for me, the lover is the generation of the energy for action, and then the magician is the shaper of that, the director of it. So I see those strongly connected in the inner space, and the warrior and the king was sort of actions in the outer space. So collectively, I see how all four of those work together. Aho.
Okay, so I really saw a lot of myself in the magician energy. I related to a lot of that, and also, the shadow side. I used to be very manipulative, cynical, delusional, afraid to live, isolated. I used to be very, very isolated. I was like addicted to isolation. And just a lot of imposter syndrome. Also, very wounded, not wanting to do the work. I've really flipped to the stronger, or more positive part of the magician, because I feel like I am very intuitive, very insightful. I practice feminine alchemy, which is very new for me. But then on the lover side, I agree. Like, I feel like the lover is kind of like my creativity also. And I used to be in a place where people would ask me, like, what are you creative about or passionate about? And I would just kind of want to collapse because I didn't have that energy in me. It had just been worn out. So I feel like I'm definitely getting more into the lover energy. But yeah, the shadow side, I definitely could see where, I was so dysregulated. I was addicted for a very, very long time, very much addicted to pleasure. I've gotten away from that. And I was very depressed, not available for life, very inactive. And I've really flipped a lot of that. So I also see like where I've attracted men, the mama's boys, the sex addict, also men that are very much addicted to pleasure. So anyways, I got a lot out of this. Go ahead, David.
I have a big bullshit detector
Yeah.
from growing up with my dad, who was an entrepreneur who had a lot of investors who were con artists, and including mafia types, real mafia type. It does actually exist. And
Yes.
so I have that in me. And I still like the lover, but I don't like the manipulative lover or without boundaries. Boundaries are real important to me. Um, but I think it's a process of maturing, like I said, from the warrior, academic, gladiator to doing something else. It's more passion, getting into my deep passions and sharing without getting all like rattled about competitiveness or ego or any of that. It's
Yeah, we
hard.
got
I'm
we
not
got
saying
about
I'm
30
not there.
seconds.
So bye now.
We got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm
20,
staying in the
30 seconds.
breakout till the end.
Okay.
Yeah,
To the
die hard.
end. Yeah,
Oh.
what was the name of the book? Do you remember the book?
Yeah, it was King Warrior Magician Lover. I think that was the name of it.
Okay.
It's the four
Okay.
Okay,
archetypes.
cool.
I think I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna do it.
Through the 10-second word of the day, if you don't mind.
You mean after we do okay.
Well, I was going to debrief them, have them hit the hot take, and then
Okay,
have
so
you
we'll
do closing remarks.
debrief on the last breakout first.
Yep, and then I'll give you closing remarks, and then I will do a closeout for the session.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, I think we have everybody. So this is your 3-second hot take from the second breakout, and I'm looking at you, Joy, then Carol, then Elizabeth.
Joy, you're on mute. Okay.
Excited to identify myself in both those later two archetypes. Loved it. Just loved it.
Carol. Unmute. Everybody just go ahead and unmute now.
The relationship to OD of these two archetypes.
Elizabeth.
Recognizing my magician archetype.
David.
Thank you, Jack. You're an excellent presenter, very clear, and you speak fast but clearly. Thank you.
Anastasia.
Love the conversation today. Love all the archetypes and evolving from one to the next as we grow.
And Jim Rogers.
Grateful to connect with Tom.
Monty.
So I think this very much, as Carol indicated, is associated with the OD profession. And Jack, we need to have your notes so we can think about it and study it.
Tom Lemke, bring us home.
Grateful that as a magician, I learned so much today. So thank you, Jack.
Jack, I'm going to hand this off to you in a second for closing remarks. Everybody else is thinking about one thing to take forward that you're going to commit to action this week, as prompted by this enriched session today. So your
I want to thank
your
everybody.
intention for the week ahead. Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for participating, and Ken, thank you for administering and leading the facilitation. What I want to say, I want to just connect the dots to GrowthOD for a minute. For me, in my work as a coach and working with teams, organizations, and leaders, all three, I do look, because I have integrated the archetypal work into my consciousness, I do look at where my clients and my teams and organizations are within these four creative energy areas in their how they manifest in their world, where they are. And I do allow my coaching to be guided by a lot of these basic principles of Robert Moore's work in terms of how I work with individuals. Now, if I work with a leader and we get to a long engagement and it's an intimate engagement where they're really receptive, I sometimes will allow them to take on this particular structure that we're doing here today. I don't do that with everybody. I mainly use it for my own work. But if I have a client that really can take on this work for themselves, this does get you behind the operating system of your consciousness at a higher level if you can integrate this work. And by the way, Ken and David, I'm happy to have any kind of an ongoing program in this area, because, by the way, this inner work is very important to our work as consultants and coaches. And the problem in society today is people are unwilling to go in and down. This is about going in and down. Everybody wants to go elevate, and that's why we have the insanity and the chaos. But the work of full maturity is going in and going down into the psyche of the archetypal structure and the collective unconscious. And that, I'll just leave you with that for now. And I invite GrowthOD to take me on in any other. I have a lot of other work in inner work, but to take on this work further, I leave it up to you guys on that. The committee, the steering committee with Olivia and everybody else.
Gotcha. Let me take it here. Be thinking about your intention for the week forward once Jack sends you the notes. My intention is to study deeper in the shadow area and apply it in my work with traders. Joy?
I saw the website, scottjeffrey.com, and I intend to go out there and review this material even more.
Carol, what are you going to do this week? And I'm going to hold you accountable for next Monday, so be ready.
I'm going to map these four when I get the notes and see where I really fit.
And Elizabeth?
I'm going to get the book that Jack told us about, because I love to read and I want to learn all about this. And great presentation, Jack.
Boji?
I might build an AI program. I like being creative and onto those archetypes, if that's okay with Jack.
Anastasia?
Like Elizabeth, I'm already looking on purchasing the book. I'm seeing that it's for pre-order on Audible, but I'm an audio learner, so Audible is where I'm going to go.
Jim?
Suck it in.
I'll pull the book off my shelf and revisit it.
Monty Miller?
I have a 2 or 3 key meetings in St. Louis this week, and I'm going to try to be a magician lover.
Tom Lemke?
I'm going to get the book and learn more.
Awesome. That's going to bring our session to a conclusion. Next week, we're going to start on our new path forward that's going to feature what we did today, and that is what I call Operation FIG. You're going to have a forgiveness, an intention, and a gratitude associated with the work, and we will do forgiveness and intention at the start. We'll do a statement of gratitude and intention at the end of it. And each week you can expect an opportunity to come in and give about a 20 to 30-second statement of your most important work in progress. And that will help us see who we are and help us find ways to help each other. And then each session will also have a content piece by a guide like we had marvelously done today. Jack, I want to thank you so much for the work that you've done today. This is a farewell now, and I'm going to turn the recording off. And since I'm not in the office, I can keep the room open for as long as you wish for coffee talk. You're not under any time pressure. Much love and peace to everybody. And that concludes today's session. We are now into coffee talk. Don't hurry.
Bravo, Jack. That was great. That was
Very
just
good.
absolutely great. It fed my soul. I'm so glad I woke up early and got here, and it